Hi, I'm Danielle. Welcome to my perfume journal. And in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the perfumes that I sampled during the month of April. And my tray looks a little bit different for this sampling video because I don't have any actual samples on it. And that is because the perfumes that I'm going to talk about are perfumes that I sampled while I was on vacation. I am very, very happy to say that Vacation Danielle was extremely well behaved. She did not go bonkers perfume shopping, but she did smell a lot of perfumes. 189 perfumes to be exact on this vacation. And those are just the perfumes that I actually wrote something down about. That doesn't even include the perfumes that I cap sniffed before I just moved on. So yeah, I love when I get to go and visit a place where I can sniff things that I wouldn't normally get to sniff back at home. And I took full advantage of that last week. And before I start telling you about some of the perfumes that I sampled, I have to start by saying that the absolute highlight of my trip was that I got to meet up with two perfume pals that I have connected with over social media in person, and we had an absolutely lovely time meeting one another and going on little perfume sniffaris together. So on one day, I got to meet up with the absolutely wonderful, beautiful, clever, and brilliant Cassandra from Skin Sense for Fuss Pots. And I can tell you that she is all of those things I just said and so much more. We met up in central London for lunch. We had a wonderful chat. We got to know each other, and then we exchanged some perfumes. And I will talk more about them in my April installment of Perfume Collecting for Regular People. I'm still kind of getting to know the perfumes that she brought for me, and so I would like to wear them a few more times before I talk about them. And then after we ate, off we went to Selfridges, one of the big department stores in London, and we sniffed our way through just about everything that they had on the counters. And I have to say, there is nothing more fun than sniffing your way through a perfume haul with another perfume enthusiast. We were oohing and eyeing and ew, no, yuck, all the way through Selfridges. It was really, really brilliant, and I will say that the next time I return to London, I am going to bring Cassandra a bedazzled cape because this woman has a superpower, and her superpower is being able to smell a very, very expensive perfume and almost immediately compare it to a much less expensive and equally pretty perfume. I have never in all of my years of being a perfume enthusiast, met anyone who can do this the way that she can. It is truly miraculous to behold. I had the best time hanging out with her, and it was definitely one of the highlights of my trip. And speaking of wonderful days with wonderful people, on another day, my husband went to a sports match with a friend, and I met up with someone that I met through the perfume community, the wonderful, kind, beautiful, and talented Lorelei. We had a nice coffee together, and then we sniffed our way through Fortnum and Mason and Harrods. It was the most delightful day. We had such a great time. And again, the perfume community is just filled with so many great folks. I have met some really interesting, fantastic, fun people who share this common interest and lots of other interests as well. And I just think the perfume community is filled with so many great people. We spent most of our time up on the 6th floor of Harrods, which is the super fancy Salon de Parfum. And we were treated to some things that I would never, ever be able to smell, let alone own, if I wasn't good about saving my pennies and have experiences like this in great company. And I think if I had to sum it all up at this point in my life, I cannot imagine any new release, any big hyped perfume that I would want more than something like that. An afternoon in a perfume hall with a really cool friend, on a vacation smelling perfumes. There's no materialistic possession that I would rather have more than an experience like that. So anyway, my vacation was a wonderful journey through the sights and smells of London And the best part was spending time with new friends who love the smelly stuff just as much as I do. So what could be better than that? Okay, so what did I smell on my vacation? You will be glad to know that I am not going to walk you through all 189 perfumes that I sampled. Nerd that I am, however, I did do a little analysis of all the perfumes I sniffed. So before I left for vacation, I made myself a spreadsheet of everything I wanted to look for and try to sniff while I was in London. So I started my vacation with 105 perfumes on that list. I was able to find and sample 48 of them. And one thing that really surprised me is that a lot of the new perfumes I wanted to try, they were like nowhere to be found in the department stores. Instead, I found most of them at the duty-free shop at Heathrow Airport when we were leaving. So that means that the remaining 141 perfumes I sampled and took notes on were things that I just kind of like discovered as I bopped in and out of all the many perfume shops and halls around London. And of those 189 total perfumes that I took notes on, I instantly had a dislike for 49 of them. I felt kind of meh about 30 of them. I liked a total of 82 perfumes, and I absolutely loved 28 perfumes. So for this video, I thought I would tell you a little bit about some of the perfumes I disliked, that I was meh about, that I liked, and that I loved. Okay, starting with the dislikes. So usually when I'm sampling a perfume, I can find something like redeemable about it. But there are definitely times when a perfume is so instantly either like revolting to me, or it's just something that I absolutely know instantly will not work for me for some reason or another. That reason is usually something to do with a particular note or an accord that I just don't prefer wearing. It's not even that the perfume is bad. I mean, sometimes, yeah, the perfume is just bad. But for me, it's usually just a perfume that I know I'm not going to prefer for my own taste. So for me, there were a few perfumes that did stand out in the dislike category. And I'm going to start with the most disappointing of all, the Duran perfume line from Xerjoff. These perfumes, I'm not even kidding, they actually made me angry when I smelled them. And that is because I love Duran. I love that band so much. I am an 80s girl through and through, and I am so disappointed that this is what they decided to put their name on. So the Duran Xerjoff line has two perfumes. One comes in your choice of 4 neon bottles. You can choose yellow, green, pink, or orange, and it's called NeoRio. And the other one is supposed to like express the darker side of Duran, and that one's called Black Moonlight, and it just smells like cheap beer. But as far as NeoRio goes, NeoRio is this horrific mix of like these really, really super sweet and boozy notes. There's rum and caramelized fig and maple syrup, and it's overly strong, it's overly saturated, and it's overly done, and it's all on a base of really big saffron and patchouli. To me, this perfume was like a hodgepodge of awfulness. And when I think about what they could have done with an 80s Rio-inspired perfume, it like makes me extra mad. There are so many cool things that they could have done. This perfume was cloying. It was sweet. It was gloopy. I just thought it was like a total mess. And so obviously NeoRio was not for me, and that one's going in the dislike category. Sorry, Duran. I still love you though. So moving over to a designer perfume, I'm going to put Alien Extraintense, the new Alien release, on my dislike list. I have to say, I love the original Alien, and even more than that, I love Alien Essence Absolute. Now, I am not an expert on Alien formulations, not even close. But I could definitely tell from sniffing this sample of Alien Extraintense that this was not a version of Alien that I would want to have in my collection. The sales associate told me that this version included an addition of pineapple, but I didn't see anything on the Mugler website to indicate that there was pineapple in this. They do mention tuberose and solar flowers, amping up the traditional alien DNA, which I guess I could see that kind of giving a pineapple effect or like a pineapple accord. But to me, this just smelled like a very watered down alien that was poured into a pre-mixed cocktail at an all-inclusive resort. That's the best way I can describe what this smelled like. And I looked this one up, and a 90 ml bottle of this perfume is going for $185. I could get a sealed bottle of the original Alien Essence Absolute for like $200 on the secondhand market. So if I were going to spend that kind of coin on an alien perfume, I would definitely go for an older, far superior version of Alien and not this one. This one, unfortunately, was a dislike for me. So finally, the last perfume that I'm putting in the dislike category for this video is Time of the Season from LUSH. So I bopped into LUSH because I really wanted to smell Chelsea Morning. I had heard a lot about that perfume, and I have to say, it is an absolutely delicious lemony butterscotch gourmand. And I would have actually purchased this perfume, except lemon is a note that just doesn't really work for me on my skin. I do think I would love to smell this on somebody else though, because this perfume was delicious. So while I was there in LUSH, I thought, well, I might as well smell some of their other new releases. So Time of the Season is a patchouli perfume. And I have to say, it took me a really long time to get into patchouli. Took me many years actually to appreciate the facets that patchouli can bring to a perfume. 10 years ago, if you asked me what perfume notes do you absolutely love and which ones do you hate, I would have been one of those people to say like, I love everything except patchouli. But over time, I think I have really grown to appreciate the different types of patchouli, the different ways that they add depth and character to a composition. Like patchouli can be very fresh and green. It can be surprisingly medicinal and camphoraceous in a good way. And it can also be like kind of chocolatey and creamy in a perfume. And so it's a wonderful material and I really love it now. However, this perfume took me immediately back to my like patchouli averse days. This is a very earthy, very kind of like geosmin heavy patchouli fragrance. And to me, that smells like wet dirt. And that's not something that I like to wear. I prefer when patchouli is not like the main character in the story. And in this perfume, it definitely is. So this one was a pass for me. Okay, so next up are the perfumes that I felt kind of like meh or indifferent about. I smelled a lot of really kind of like boring generic perfumes. But for the purposes of this part of the video, I'm going to tell you about the perfumes that I was actually really looking forward to, that I thought I would at least like, if not love, and they just ended up being kind of meh. So first up is Yawahada from Jeux. Now, Jeux is a brand that has been kind of hit or miss for me. Right now, the only perfume from this brand that I would actually purchase if I found it at a really good price is Koyame, which is just a really nice, bright, watery green floral. It's one of the most watery florals I think I've ever smelled, and I just find it really nice and happy. I was super, super excited to try Yawahada. It means soft skin. It had notes of rice powder and rose and milk and jasmine in the heart, so I was expecting this sort of like soft, starchy rose jasmine fleurmond, almost like a mochi type scent, but this was really surprising. Instead, it came off really, really shampoo-y to me. There's green pear in the opening, and that just kind of took over everything, and it never let up. That's all I could smell the whole time I was sort of, wafting the blotter around my nose. So instead of floral mochi, I got Garnier Fructis, and that's what made this one just kind of meh for me. So the next meh perfume that I smelled was 32 Venenum from my favorite niche brand, L'Artisan Parfumeur. And I think the problem here is that I hyped this one up in my own mind too much. So this is definitely not a bad perfume. It just is not what I was expecting. There are only 3 notes in 32 Venenum. They are masala chai, sandalwood, and rice. And I thought that this was going to like knock me off my feet. I was expecting this like woody chai spiced rice pudding, kind of like the ricey, spicy version of one of my favorite perfumes, Bois Farine. And instead, this one just kind of like fell flat for me. It didn't move. It didn't evolve the way that I hoped. It just felt kind of like dull and spiritless, whereas Bois Farine, on the other hand, has so much life. It has so much movement to it. So this one was pretty disappointing. Again, not a bad perfume, but it just wasn't what I had convinced myself in my mind that it was going to be. And the last perfume in the meh category is Kenzo's newest flower, Ikebana Indigo. And I was really excited because I saw this one at Duty Free. I love Kenzo flower. And this is their newest release, their newest flanker. And I really loved the idea, the concept of incorporating indigo blue dye into the flower DNA with iris and vanilla. And I thought this was going to be a really interesting composition. But instead, this one fell just kind of flat for me. I have smelled ink notes in perfumes before, and I have found them to be incredibly interesting. Like, for example, Piper and Perro make a perfume called Veil that has like a tattoo ink note in it. And I love Perfumer H's perfume called Ink. And in those perfumes, I think the ink is like notably present. It gives the perfume almost like a mineralic accord and a darkness that is unexpected against other lighter kind of notes. And that's what I was thinking I was going to get in this perfume, especially combined with the iris. I did get a little bit of like the blueness that they were going for, but I wanted more of that like liquid ink note to balance out the dry iris. I was hoping that there would be like a tension between wet and dry in this perfume, but it just really didn't deliver. I will say though, I think I want to try this one again because I smelled this in Duty Free when, you know, your nose is like being assaulted by the scents of 1,000 atomizers going off at once. So I do want to like kind of see if this one moves into the like category for me. But for right now, first impression, this one is just kind of sitting squarely in meh. Okay, so moving on to the good stuff. This is the stuff that I liked, and there was a lot of stuff that I liked, a lot more that I liked than I didn't like. I usually, like on my channel, I really like talking about perfumes I enjoy, but I don't love everything. And so I think it's good to have a balance of like explaining, even like just explaining to yourself why you love what you love and why you don't like what you don't like, because it just helps you curate a collection that's really meaningful and personal to you. Okay, anyway, I picked out 3 perfumes for this part of the video that I liked, all for really, really different reasons. And we will start with Lawn from Angela Flanders. So as soon as I see a perfume named Lawn, I know it's going to be nice and green, and I'm probably going to like it. And this one definitely delivered. I don't know, it's kind of hard nowadays to find very green fragrances. Gourmands and fruity florals are so prevalent, but this one is just a beautiful, modern, grassy green perfume. It has a lot of lemon balm in it, and that gives it that like fresh lawn-like quality that balances out the more like bitter green galbanum that's in the base. And then there's some jasmine and there's some tuberose that I picked out in this that were not heavy at all, not indolic. It was more like the flowers were just starting to bud rather than being in full bloom. And so I just thought this was a really nice, fresh, green, springy perfume. Very, very strong like. Okay, so next up is Jeux de Peau from Serge Lutens, which I got to smell in the bell jar. And I had never smelled Serge Lutens bell jar before, so that was really cool. I enjoyed that. And this one was right up my street. This was so nice. This is very carby. It has notes of wheat and barley and rye. And there are these like lovely roasty, nutty accords floating all around. And then you get this like interesting little like peak of licorice and some milkiness in there. And it gives it all some unexpected interest. And this is like some amazing Christopher Sheldrake stuff. It is one of those perfumes that just does not stop surprising you with what it reveals. Sometimes it's musky, sometimes it's a little tiny bit fruity. It's sweet, it's floral, it's woody, it's creamy, it's dry. It's everything. It's like Serge Lutens at its finest. And I mean, now that I'm talking about this perfume like this, I don't know why this didn't end up on the love list. I mean, probably because I smelled some things that like really knocked my socks off. Like if I hadn't smelled those things, this might have been a love. But I guess in comparison, Jeux de Peau is going to be a strong, very strong like. So the last perfume in the like category was a surprise like for me. And that was Passeggiata from Bulgari. And of all the designer brands out there, I think Bulgari is the one that I'm like the least familiar with. So while I was able to, I tried to sniff my way through as many Bulgari perfumes as I could while I had the chance. And I was really surprised that I enjoyed so many of the ones that look like those like wrapped candies. I thought I was not going to like them, that they were going to be too sweet and kind of gimmicky, but I was wrong. And of all of the ones that I smelled in that lineup, I liked this Passeggiata the best. And that is no wonder because I looked it up after smelling it that day and I found out that it is primarily an ylang-ylang perfume. And I love ylang-ylang. It is bright and sunny and radiant. It's just a really pretty floral musk. It's like an Italian sunset in a bottle. And the only thing I could say about this perfume that would be like not so positive is that there is absolutely no way I would be spending $300 for a perfume like this. Like if this perfume were on a discount website for like $40, it would be a no-brainer. I would purchase it immediately. And I do think there probably is something out there that smells kind of similar at this price point. I'm going to have to ask Cassandra to help me out with that. But yeah, I was really surprised how much I enjoyed these Bulgari perfumes. I wasn't expecting to. So this one goes into the like category because of the surprise. So moving on to 3 perfumes that I absolutely loved. Loved, loved, loved. Immediate love, instant love, knocked me off my feet. And I will say, this is not easy to do at this stage of the game, at my age, with all the perfumes that I have smelled in my lifetime that are stored in my memory bank. But my friends, it happened. And it happened a lot on the 6th floor of Harrods. But first I'm going to talk about a perfume that was not on the 6th floor at Harrods. This is a perfume that I smelled at Liberty London. This is a perfume called Vermeil, and it's from the brand Bienaime. It was really hard to narrow this down to just one perfume to talk about from this brand because in their line of 5 perfumes, I loved every single one of them. Loved them. So just a little background. Bienaime is a revival brand, which is something that I think is awesome in perfumery. Like basically what happens is that a really good perfume house goes dormant for some time for, whatever reason. And then many years later, somebody steps up to revive the house and recreate the scents. So Bienaime started in 1935 by Robert Bienaime, who is probably best known for creating the perfume Quelques Fleurs from Houbigant. That was Princess Diana's famous wedding scent. So then after the head of Houbigant, I can't remember if he passed away or stepped down, but Robert Bienaime took over Houbigant from 1916 to 1930, and then he opened his own perfume house in 1935. And so he passed away in 1960, and that's when the brand kind of fell silent. And in 2021, a woman named Cecilia Mergui revived the brand after she purchased it in 2019. So she was a passionate collector of Art Deco pieces. And she had found a vintage Bienaime powder compact at an online flea market. And that was the first thing that sort of like led her down the road of learning more about this brand and eventually purchasing it and relaunching it in 2021. So the perfumes and all of the products in this line, they make like body creams and shower gels and all kinds of like, cool things. They're very French glamour. They're like very cosmetic. They're creamy. They're romantic. The design is very Art Deco. Every single detail in the branding is so beautiful. It's so well thought out. I actually took a little video of the display at Liberty London to show you so you could see how pretty it all is. The packaging, the labels, the color scheme, everything about this brand and the perfumes themselves are absolutely gorgeous. So Vermeil was my favorite of the line because it is a very powdery, very lipsticky, cosmetic floral, and it has everything I love most in a perfume. There is carrot seed, rose, heliotrope, iris, violet, raspberry, aldehydes, sandalwood, white musk. It's like a pink silk robe with like ostrich feather cuffs and a collar. Faux ostrich feathers, of course, and like kitten heel slippers with matching feather trim. And this perfume is like one of those, if it came in a dabber, it would be like one dab behind each ear before bedtime. Very, just very glamorous, beautiful, romantic scents. I absolutely fell in love with this perfume. I kept going back into Liberty London every time we walked by just to have a sniff of it, put a little spritz on my hand so I could keep sniffing it while we walked back to our hotel. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous perfume, and everything that this entire brand makes is just spectacular. So next is a perfume from the house of Fueguia 1833. So I was well and truly wowed by every single perfume in this line. Like, there wasn't a single perfume that I smelled in the Fueguia salon that I did not love. So let me just tell you that the 6th floor of Harrods is no joke. It is like a carnival for rich people. All of the fancy perfume houses have these little salons, and each one has its own staff, and they all have like super extensive knowledge about the brand's line and all of the perfumes in the line. And the only salon up there that has multiple brands in one place is the Raja Dove salon. Every other salon up there is just brand specific. So at the end of the hall, there's this one salon that has all of the Harrods exclusives. All the bottles are like Harrods green, and mostly all the perfumes in that room have like some kind of oud in them. And then across from there is the Fueguia 1833 salon. And there was this lovely sales associate working that day, and she sat us down and she walked us through several of the brand's offerings and told us like stories about each one. And so the brand was founded in Argentina, specifically in the Patagonian region, and Julian Bedell is the person behind it. He created the brand as like an acknowledgement of the native people and the plants of Patagonia. And he created the perfumes as like an anthropological study of the relationship between scents and rituals or traditions. Really, really just a beautiful homage to Patagonia. And so this room is dark, it's dimly lit, and the focus is completely on this huge, long counter of bottles that are organized by scent family. And over each of the bottles, there's no cap on the bottles, there are these glass cloches. And the scent of each of the perfume kind of like condenses into the glass bubble. And what you can do is you like lift the glass cloche up to your nose and you inhale, And these scents, they just envelop you. And there were probably, I would have to say, there have to be over 100 scents in the line. And every single one has a story, a specific story behind it. And that lovely sales associate knew every single one by heart. So the one that I was very taken with is a perfume called Muskara Cacao. It is a single note chocolate perfume. So I learned that day that all of the perfumes that started with the word Muskara are single note perfumes. And I would not call myself a gourmand lover, but I am particularly drawn to cacao perfumes, especially ones that are very dry, very dusty, and very bittersweet, kind of like baking cocoa. And oh my gosh, this perfume, Muskara Cacao, is without a doubt the finest cacao perfume I have ever smelled. It is fashioned from a blend of different cacao extracts. It is the most velvety, but also dry cacao. It is rich and deep. It is just a magnificent perfume. Okay, so finally, the perfume that almost literally knocked me off of my feet. It's Rose Snow from Henri Jacques. So I had been to Henri Jacques once before with my friend Fliss, and we had a moment where we had to lay down on the fainting couch right outside of Henri Jacques. She had smelled a perfume called Dentelle au Coeur, which is a tuberose perfume, and I had smelled a perfume called Myosotis, and that is an iris and carnation perfume, and they were so beautiful. We literally had to sit down and have a moment. Henri Jacques was this extremely exclusive French haute perfumery that only used to sell perfume by private consultation. And they have been known for many, many years for the quality of their ingredients, the skill of their perfumers, and this unwavering dedication to quality and to the traditional methods of French perfumery. So at some point, I don't know when, I don't know what year, but they expanded their ateliers to the general public. And I have to admit, it was pretty intimidating to think about stepping into that salon and asking to smell something, because there was no way I was going to buy anything in there. But the sales associates could not have been more welcoming. They invited us in to sit down on the sofa in their private section of the salon, and they invited us to smell the pure parfums. And so, having smelled Myosotis and Dentelle au Coeur before, I asked for those first because I wanted to smell the pure parfum versions. I had smelled the eau de parfum, the spray versions before, but they take these little tiny blotters, which you can see on my tray, and they just dip them into the pure parfum. And I wiped a tiny little amount of Myosotis on my hand, and immediately that gorgeous iris just started booming off of my skin. And later on, the carnation started to appear, and I could not stop sniffing my hand all day. I was taking my hand and shoving it into Lorelai's face. I was like, smell this again, smell this again. And it's just literal magic. It's just magic. But what I didn't realize is that the real showstopper for me was going to be Rose Snow. So I had heard about this perfume before. It is made with a kind of rose wax that crystallizes in the bottle, and that leaves the pure parfum to look like this sparkly, unctuous snow. And so when the sales associate dipped the blotter into the pure parfum for me, the pointy end came out covered in this thick crystallized perfume. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. And it smelled like a million rose bushes that were just blooming under my nose. And it had little dots of iris and verbena that just lifted the rose. It just gave it a brightness. And the saying, you get what you pay for, that could not be truer in this perfume, because get this. A 15 ml bottle of the Pure Parfum goes for $750. A 30 ml of the Pure Parfum is $1,200. I mean, that little blotter right there probably has like $25 worth of perfume on it. And a 75 ml bottle of the spray version of the perfume is $750. And if I'm being totally honest, if I were ever to sell my entire perfume collection and only have one single signature scent, one solitary bottle, an Henri Jacques perfume would definitely be in the running. The quality is incredible. The scents are classic and timeless. And listen, I have certainly spent more than $750 in my lifetime collecting dozens of what I would call good perfumes. But if I were ever to just dump it all, just get rid of it all, and purchase one great perfume for the rest of my days, it very well could be Rose Snow from Henri Jacques. So there we have it, a sampling of the sampling that I did on my recent vacation. I really had a lot of fun combing through my spreadsheet of everything I sampled on my vacation to think about what I wanted to talk about in this video. So thank you so much for being here, for spending time with me, and for chatting perfumes with me in the comments. I really appreciate you all, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.